10-minute story of Robinson Crusoe. Long, engaging, natural English retelling. When Robinson Crusoe was a young man, he had only one dream: to go to sea. His parents wanted a quiet and safe life for him, but the sound of ships, the smell of the ocean, and the idea of distant lands pulled at his heart stronger than anything else. One day, without permission and without a plan, he left home and stepped onto a ship, beginning the adventure that would shape the rest of his life. His first journeys were full of danger. He experienced storms that almost tore the ship apart, and he saw men work with fear and courage as waves the size of houses crashed across the deck. Yet instead of turning back, he felt even more determined. He survived raids by pirates. He lived as a captive for a time, and eventually he escaped, proving to himself that he could survive anything. After years of travel, Crusoe joined a trade expedition across the Atlantic. Everything seemed normal until a violent storm struck one night. Lightning split the sky. The ship groaned as if it were alive, and sailors shouted prayers into the wind. The storm destroyed the vessel completely. Crusoe found himself thrown into the sea, fighting for every breath as the waves pulled him under. When he finally reached the shore, exhausted and shaking, he realized he was the only survivor. He had washed up on a deserted island. At first, fear controlled him. There was no food prepared, no shelter, no people. But Crusoe quickly understood that if he wanted to live, he had to act. He swam back to the broken ship and rescued tools, weapons, seeds, clothes, and food. Then he built a small shelter under a rock wall, turning it over time into a secure home. He carved out a routine: hunting, fishing, drying grapes for raisins, planting wheat, and making bread. Every small success felt like a victory against the island itself. Days became weeks, weeks became months, and months turned into years. Crusoe learned to make pottery, raise goats, build fences, and even create a calendar by cutting marks into a wooden post. The island that once seemed like a prison now felt like a kingdom where he was the only ruler. Yet loneliness remained the hardest enemy. He often spoke to himself just to hear a human voice, and he wondered if he would ever see another person again. One day, after nearly 20 years on the island, Crusoe saw something shocking on the beach. Footprints. Not his own. Real human footprints. Fear returned instantly. He hid and watched from the trees and eventually discovered the truth. The island was occasionally visited by groups of cannibals. Crusoe avoided them for years, waiting, planning, watching from a distance. Then came the moment that changed everything. Crusoe witnessed a group preparing to sacrifice a prisoner. Crusoe acted without thinking, fighting with the courage of a man who had spent half his life surviving alone. He rescued the prisoner, who kneeled gratefully before him. Crusoe named him Friday, after the day of their meeting. Friday became Crusoe's companion, student, and friend. They hunted together, built together, shared stories, and laughed. Crusoe taught him English and introduced him to new ideas and skills. For the first time in decades, Crusoe felt human again. The island no longer felt empty. Together, they built a small boat. They planned escapes, fought off another group of cannibals, and even rescued 2 more captives. Eventually, Crusoe helped free a captured ship from mutineers, and in return, the new captain offered him passage back to England. After 35 long years on the island, Crusoe finally returned home. England had changed, and Crusoe had changed even more. He was wiser, stronger, and calmer, a man who had proved that the human spirit can survive storms, loneliness, fear, and time itself. Though he returned to civilization, the island remained forever in his memory, a place of struggle, discovery, and transformation. And so, the story of Robinson Crusoe reminds us that even in the loneliest and hardest moments of life, a person can find strength, purpose, and hope, not from the world around him, but from the courage inside Dot. But Crusoe's story did not end the moment he stepped back onto a ship. In many ways, the island had shaped him so deeply that returning to the noise and rhythm of ordinary society felt almost unreal. As he sailed away, watching the distant outline of the island disappear under the fading light, he felt a mix of joy and sorrow. Joy because he was finally going home. Sorrow because he was leaving behind the place that had been both his prison and his teacher. During the voyage, Crusoe often found himself staring at the open sea, thinking about the decades he had spent alone. The sailors listened in disbelief as he told them how he built tools with his own hands, how he tamed goats, how he survived nights of storms with nothing but a fire and his faith. For them it was a legend. For Crusoe, it was simply life. When he finally reached England, the world he remembered had changed almost beyond recognition. Streets were busier, towns were larger, and people moved with a speed he had forgotten. He searched for familiar faces, but so many old friends had aged, moved away, or passed on. His parents were long gone, and Crusoe felt a sudden pain of loss, a reminder that while he had survived a lifetime on the island, time in the real world had not stopped. Yet Crusoe was not alone. Friday stood at his side throughout everything. The two of them walked the streets of London, attracting curious looks, but Crusoe treated Friday as a brother. He helped Friday learn the language, taught him customs, and protected him from rude stares. Friday, in return, reminded Crusoe what friendship meant: loyalty without conditions. Crusoe soon discovered that he was not forgotten entirely. A lawyer informed him that the money from his early plantations in Brazil had grown enormously over the years. What he had once left behind as a minor business had now made him a wealthy man. Crusoe felt as though fate was finally rewarding him for all the silent suffering he had endured. Still, even with comfort and wealth, he struggled to sleep in a normal bed. The silence of his large house felt different, not natural, not alive, like the nights on the island when wind moved through the trees and waves whispered against the shore. Sometimes he woke up at dawn, expecting to step outside and check on his goats, collect fruit. Instead, he found himself standing in a quiet London room, realizing how much the island lived within him. He tried to adapt. He tried to be the person he was before the shipwreck, but that person no longer existed. Crusoe had become a man shaped by solitude, by survival, by patience. He noticed how people complained about small problems, how they worried about fashion, gossip, and trivial things. He listened politely, but inside he felt a distance, as if he were watching a world he no longer truly belonged to. Yet Crusoe did not fall into loneliness again. Instead, he wrote. He recorded every detail of his years on the island: the fear, the hunger, the storms, the daily victories, the arrival of Friday, and the constant battle between despair and hope. Through writing, he relived everything, but this time with gratitude rather than suffering. His story became not just a tale of survival, but a testament to human strength and spirit. With time, Crusoe also realized that his years on the island had given him something rare: clarity. He understood what mattered in life: resourcefulness, gratitude, courage, and companionship. He learned that a man can lose everything but still rebuild from nothing if he keeps his will alive. He understood that fear becomes smaller when faced directly, and that loneliness can be transformed into wisdom if the heart remains strong. Some nights he sat by the fire in his home, staring into the glow, and almost imagined he was back in his cave on the island, with Friday sitting beside him, speaking softly of distant shores. There were moments when he wondered if he might one day return not as a desperate castaway, but as a visitor, as someone who wanted to see the place that had shaped him. And though Crusoe went on to travel again, To explore new lands and face new dangers, the island remained the turning point of his life, the place where the boy who sought adventure became the man who mastered survival. In the end, Crusoe's journey teaches us something profound. That even when the world strips us of comfort, society, and everything familiar, there is a part of us that can rise stronger than we ever imagined. That a single human being, alone against the wild, can discover more about life than many do in a lifetime surrounded by others. And that sometimes the greatest adventure is not the one we seek, but the one we are forced to face and overcome.